Hey there. Before you are about to dive into one of the episodes for our maternal mental health series, make sure that you have subscribed to our podcast on Spotify, the podcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you like this episode, we would appreciate if you spread the word and recommend or even forward this episode or the whole podcast in general to another parent or to anyone who you think should be listening to this. If you find yourself asking, how can you support us? The easiest way to do this is to give us a follow on Instagram at Damn Parenting Podcast and to rate us with 5 stars on the platform that you're listening to this. We hope you know you're not alone on this parenting journey and you enjoy the following episode. Let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Damn Parenting, your English speaking parenting podcast from Amsterdam. We are your hosts, Maren and
Eva.
And this is another episode within our Maternal Mental Health Month of May series, where we invite experts to the table to cover the topic of maternal mental health from a 360-degree angle to really look at this topic from all the different perspectives. And today we have Katia Komic with us. And she is an expert in mindfulness. And one thing that she brought to the table, which I had never heard anywhere else when I was looking for mindfulness, she established a term of the mental health hygiene. And when I heard that first, Katja, I was like, yes, this is what we need, because this brings the mental health aspect really to the realization of this is something that we need to take care of, like our daily hygiene. Like we brush our teeth, we brush our hair, we wash ourselves. Why not pay the same attention to the topic of mental health like we do to the hygiene of our body? Also, our brain needs to be cleared out sometimes. So welcome, Katia, and thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Thank you for the intro, and I'm happy to be here as well. And yes, mental hygiene. And I would love to bet that in 5, maybe even earlier, 3 years, this will be such a norm. Just like we clean our teeth, we take a shower, taking pauses, pockets of time for reflection, for awareness practices, for mindfulness practices, for breath work practices will become a norm.
And the more we talk about these things, the more it comes into people's mind and the more aware they're of this topic. So we'll dive straight into the first questions that we have for you. So how can mindfulness practice specifically benefit the maternal mental health?
I've been reflecting on it a lot recently as someone who's going through the second pregnancy, someone who's gone through the postpartum, almost 2 years of being postpartum. I am very grateful for the skills that I've managed to develop, which are mindfulness, presence, focused attention, compassion skills. And answering your question on how this helped me personally and how I see this helping to people I work with or people who are practicing this type of tools. It creates conditions for much more awareness, which then in its turn creates conditions for choice. In the end, we create awareness and choice. Choice is the most empowering thing a mother can have or feel. And this choice is usually then rooted in something more deeper than just, oh, there is the book that I've read, or there's the course that told me to do this, or there is the expert that told me that I should do this and that with my baby. The choice is then rooted, it's informed with all the information, the external information that we can find out there, but it's rooted in also what we can call intuitive knowing. But in order to have that, we do have to create those conditions for awareness and choice, the conditions of silence, moments of reflection, moments of dropping into the body, feeling the breath, taking the breath, exhaling. And this is one of the umbrella benefits. But if I break it down and make it actually very practical for you, what actually we train with mindfulness. It's a buzzword today, right? A lot of mindfulness nowadays, mindful leadership, mindful parenting, mindful pregnancy. What do we train? It all comes down to these things. First, a mother trains her ability to pay attention to herself, to the world around her, to her baby, even though this one comes kind of naturally due to the nature, making sure that we do pay attention to the baby. But paying attention is the skill that has to start getting a little bit stronger once we kind of create this formal practice of, okay, let me just sit down and for 5 minutes, feel my heartbeat, feel my breath going in and out. And okay, I pay attention to myself. And every time I get distracted, I know that it's totally normal. All I need to do is just remember to bring my attention back. So attention is number one, the muscle. The second one that gets then amplified is the capacity to be much more resilient mentally and emotionally. And honestly, this has something to do with the, let's say, neurobiology. It's something that happens on a brain scan when they see that meditators, people who have this practice, this mental hygiene in their daily life, they see that area around the amygdala is getting a little bit less activated. And this area is responsible for processing fear and anxiety. So there's generally less that feeling of, okay, what if something is wrong? What if something is bad? And more of that sense of, we got it. Change in perspective sometimes is created. There's ability to see a bigger picture, ability to trust that things are changing, nothing is permanent. So that wisdom helps also to be much more mentally and emotionally resilient. And then what can actually happen more often is that it's more that people from outside tell you, hey, you're much more chill. What is it? And yes, again, some of us naturally happen to be more chill when we are going through the pregnancy. There's hormones that help us to do that. But some of us also get a bit more agitated. And so we help ourselves to get that default way of our being be a little bit more calmer. And the final thing that develops with this practice is that awareness in choice. I'm becoming much more aware of how I feel right now in the morning, in the moment. Do I like it or not? If it's not really pleasant, unpleasant, it's fine because I know that it's going to go away. And my choices are rooted in that present moment experience. Hey, right now I feel actually really down. I don't really know why. I seem to have a good sleep, but something is off. What can I do? Rather than start thinking a lot of what could have happened, who should I blame? Oh, that conversation. Oh, it's that thing. Oh, it's that coworker. I start to making much more wiser choices of how can I support myself here. And sometimes it's asking for help. Sometimes it's taking some more minutes for self-care, whatever it is for yourself. But yeah, choices are much more informed. So these are the three, this kind of the landscape of what actually we develop.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is really the benefit of creating space to make a decision and make an informed decision and really not go into the whole fight or flight mode immediately. And what I'm also hearing is that it takes practice. So this is not something that I'm deciding to be mindful. I'm mindful now, and tomorrow this is all going to work and all my problems are going to be gone. But as we teach our children to brush their teeth and how long does it take, that they can then actually really do it themselves. So we need to also practice these techniques.
Yes.
And what I'm
Yes.
also hearing is the part of connection. And we've said this with in parenting episodes where we've said connection before correction. And I guess this we can apply this then to ourselves. Let's connect with me. So I'm not acting out of this fight or flight mode. And I
Yes.
connect, I reassess what's going on, and then I can make the choice. I notice I'm completely overwhelmed. There's no benefit in making a choice now. I need to regulate first and then make the choice and then be connected with myself and with my child. So yeah, that's
Yes.
very, very
This
powerful.
and this theme is now literally reflected in a lot of areas of parenting, of motherhood, of self-care, of mindful communication, and at work, in family communication. There's so many ways to look at it, and that's where I wanted to actually highlight this idea that when I was curious about, there's meditation. In a yoga background, meditation is this ability to reach a state of bliss. Okay. But then the more you dig deeper into that, it's actually super, again, practical. And we can look at meditation or mindfulness as this kind of pockets of benefit. So first of all, yes, you're becoming mindful of your body. Okay. I know what it feels like when I am in discomfort, but I am okay with that. That's why when we prepare for birth, mindfulness practice can be really helpful in learning how we will navigate the contractions, those moments of waves. Okay, it's uncomfortable. What can I do? How can I pay attention to this? Or where can I go with my mind during these moments? Then there's a mindfulness of emotion. So about connection with yourself first. What do I feel actually? How does it feel in my body? That sense of anxiety or frustration or anger or irritation? Because as a mother, we're not supposed to be perfectly, loving and blissful and just joyful. Sometimes we have those spikes of, and so having that thing being recognized. maybe even investigated and then also nurtured. Okay, I am human. I have capacity to not just feel joy and happiness, but also I have this capacity for this, say something, the best speech I will ever regret. And that's where the wisdom comes. Because once we notice, once we have this moment of pause, recognize, allow, investigate, where's it coming from? What actually triggered me? From here, you have a choice. How can I respond? And sometimes you respond, you're like, you know what? We have to talk. And sometimes you're like, it's not worth. It's going to go. It passes by, it transforms. Awareness of body, awareness of emotion, awareness of your thoughts, noticing how much of those negative thoughts, right? All of us are familiar with that. Am I good enough? Not good enough. Am I worthy? I'm not worthy. And just recognition of that. Hey, why all of a sudden, when I dropped that cup and my baby was crying, I talked to myself as if I'm the worst person in the world, while in the same situation, where if my friend would go through this, I would be compassionate. I'd be like, hey, we got it. It's normal. You're not the worst mother. So noticing these patterns gives, again, wisdom and insight. And then finally, it's the whole part of this mindfulness practice is also ultimately compassion. How can I be a little bit more calmer, kinder, compassionate to my imperfections and also to imperfections of others? And this is where connections start happening. So that's where kind of the whole philosophy that's rooted in Eastern philosophy of mindfulness is bringing us towards to.
You answered a question I was actually going to ask there, where I was actually going to ask about the mindfulness techniques helping moms with those feelings of guilt, inadequacy, shame and all that. So, I mean, that's already answered, I guess. So the next question then will be, how is it also helping mothers who are experiencing sleep deprivation and insomnia and that very degenerative way? Like, I mean, it's detrimental to your mental health. So how can mindfulness really help us when we are beyond exhausted?
What happens when we are beyond exhausted? I mean, very often is, I'm failing. I cannot do this. I am so tired. Just as this despair that may settle in. So again, there's a lot of emotions that come with that. Got a lot of resistance, a lot of the whole mess of feeling, thoughts, emotions, sensations in the body that make things get a little bit more complicated when it comes to, okay, what would be the wisest choice right now? How can I support myself in the moment? I want to say that, yes, mindfulness practice before sleep will help you to fall asleep. I would love to say that, but I cannot also promise it to every single mother. Yes, it will calm down the nervous system if you are someone who gets a bit more of that agitation and who's had some tough sleeping routine and it was just like all over the place and the baby's just about to wake up in 1 hour and it's already 3 a.m. and you haven't slept and you're already back to work. There's too much. But then, in my opinion, if I have to be really, really honest, I would go for compassion that you can bring towards yourself when you're going through that, the wisdom that it will pass, and then making the choice that how can you support yourself just a little bit when you are in this chapter of, I just need some sleep. And here we can a little bit detour and say that next to mindfulness, there is a very popular, gaining popularity practice like Yoga Nidra. They call it also non-sleep deep rest. Yoga Nidra for more yogi community, non-sleep deep rest for more modern mamas. There's a lot of practices on YouTube. I'll have a link in the show notes. The one that I was using during my 3 months of postpartum. And very often it's being compared to meditation. It has the same components of scanning your body, feeling your breath, and kind of dropping into that state of between sleep and non-sleep. And at the same time, it does fuel the battery enough to keep going. So you won't feel like you've recovered, but 15 to 20 minutes during the day will actually truly keep you going till the end of the day. If you need another 10 minutes before falling to sleep, it's another fueling batteries a little bit just to sustain that state of that you can do this. And it comes, again, it's a wise choice. Okay, what can I do? I can keep stressing out that I haven't slept and keep hating on everyone, including my partner, that he happens to be sleeping normal, rather than, okay, maybe I should do something that I can try something. I can get curious about something. And I am a huge advocate for Yoga Nidra. And there's a huge community out there that supports it and the science supports it. So that's my tool to support in sleep deprivation, sleep exhaustion chapter.
You spoke there about the 20 minutes in the day. Obviously, with a newborn, they're going to be sleeping quite a lot, really, for the first couple of weeks into maybe a month or two. So that's something that is more optional, but as they kind of move into a more busy day, so you're not really newborn, but you're more into the baby and, they're waking up a bit more. What advice could you actually give moms with, I don't know, maybe 3-month-olds, 1-year-olds, 18-month-olds, 2-year-olds? How can we incorporate mindfulness into the busy days where some children might be waking us up? So it's not a case of we can set an alarm, to wake up, just wake up half an hour before the baby wakes up. But is there some other ways that you could suggest that we could be able to actually build into our hygiene, I guess, as you would put it?
Yeah. Good question. So less is more. If I hear someone who is like, all right, let's do it. I made a resolution. I read this book. From now on, 20 minutes a day, I'm going to power through. This person will last for about a month, maybe 2 months. Maybe if you are moms out, those that will stick to the practice. But usually you fall through the routine and then you only end up sort of feeling that sense of guilt that, I couldn't do that consistently. So less is more. And by less is more, I truly mean what's the least amount. And I always ask a mom, what would be the least amount of time you could spend in silence? She could say 20 minutes. I'm like, no. Honestly, 10 minutes. Okay, let's divide it by 2, 5 minutes, and maybe even less. It can be 3 minutes. It can be 1 minute. It can be when the baby is just gave you the worst tantrum or is in the process of the worst tantrum. How can you sit back and be like, okay, I feel my breath in my body and I feel that desire to right now just explode. And you watch this feeling pass through your body. It's so amazing to see how it takes about 90 seconds for a strong emotion like fear, frustration, anger, be very transient at the same time. The 90-second loop has been a sort of a fun fact number that's been recited or in the community of scientists who study emotions and feelings, of that state of that wave that rises up of like, I'm just going to now really explode. And then it subsides or it transforms into something else. And sometimes the next wave can be sadness or being very upset, or you kind of have that release of like tears can come through. But what you learn from that moment, from that 1 minute, is that nothing is permanent. Things change. And you get this confirmation over and over again. When things are amazing, you know that, well, nothing is permanent. Yesterday she was easy and we had so much fun. Nothing is permanent. You don't get too excited and expectations are not as strong about that, I got it. I'm the super mom. Now from now on, I'm going to I'm going to share with everyone what it takes to be the super mom. You learn that, but also you learn that when these moments go into the deep hole, it's going to go away within an hour. Within 2 hours. But one last thing before I would love to share with you one practice. When we feel emotion, which is very powerful and strong, like again, anger, frustration, what we tend to do as the people of the Western world, we tend to think about it. Let's say if someone made me angry, I keep thinking about that person who made me angry, about that email that made me angry, about that. The thought and the emotion are super connected, right? And so we fuel it in. So when I talk about the 90-second rule, I'm talking about when you think you can't feel, when you feel you can't really think. So dropping into that, feel that wave, it's coming, it's painful, I want to just cry or I want to hit someone, but then I see it evolve into something else, and then we're free from that. And from that moment, again, maybe it's a wise choice, maybe it's a joke, something that you can start, okay, that was something they didn't tell me about, and then immediately it's a bit of more lightness, that we start bringing into those days of motherhood when it's rainy and things just go all against the odds and make things just completely seem hopeless. But there's always, an exit, like in a good sense, like a good exit that, tomorrow morning it's going to be completely different. I will not even remember why I was so upset at the little one or at my partner. Yeah, we as women are mysterious, beautiful creatures, and we have that diversity of feelings, that whole amplitude of experiencing life at fullest. And the number one thing is know that only because we're human and only because we are mothers, we should allow these things to be lived through our bodies, experienced fully, so that then they can inform us. We become much more deep as personalities. If I tell you that I'm perfect, I will be the most boring person in the world. I think we love characters that have the depth of that amplitude of feelings and sensations. And sometimes we want to love them and sometimes we want to hate them. but then there's some depth in them. And as mothers, we're just these personalities who have that amplified because of all other external things like lack of sleep and new baby, changes in life, and all those things that we adapt to while going through matrices and growing into becoming a mother.
What I really love about what you just said is your approach of mindfulness does not equal toxic positivity, because when we are oftentimes now mindfulness is, oh, this bad feeling doesn't exist. I can just breathe it away and it's not here and I can focus on something else. But what you really captured very beautifully is that the feelings are there. They want to be felt. Like, how do I deal with the feeling and really living through it? And then we can let it go, because the feeling, if we don't feel it, it's just going to amplify. It's just going to pop up, and it's going to pop up in a situation where we're not aware, where it's kind of, oh, now is the time where I can be felt. And it might be in the supermarket, and then we blurt out at the cash person, like, what's going on? So I really love this approach of what you just said, watching those feelings, knowing they will pass, connecting with that feeling, letting it go. And then it's processed, and then we can move on to the next. So really this whole reminder that mindfulness does not mean I don't want to feel bad feelings and I just have to breathe them away and then they're gone. But really connecting with it, spend that 90 seconds watching it. And what you said, very powerful, that how does it feel in my body? Like, what is the sensation? And then becoming aware, and then also sensing the early signs of these things. Oh, I know my back. I have this with my back. I know when my back is like the muscles are tensing, then I know I'm on the wave. I'm up there, up that mountain, up that mountain. So getting aware of these little early signs of these feelings is very, very powerful to then connect with them and then manage them and then ride the wave instead of being totally overflown with those feelings. So thank you so much for pointing this out again, that the negative feelings will be there and they need to be processed, they need to be watched, they need to be accessed, and they need to be then resolved with these techniques.
Yes, and compassion, right? What would you say to your best friend who would be, I just cannot do this anymore? You would never say, there, then you failed. Look at you. You're a loser. Yeah, your mom was right about you when she said that to you. No. Hey, you got it. And it's such that's one of the things that would put me off early on. We're like, compassion, like, okay, loving kindness. This is such a fluffy, flaky word. And only having that science now again shows that people who are compassionate, they stick to their resolutions much longer. They are much more resilient. The self-talk that we have is going to it will define the long-term game that we are all playing. It's not about who's going to win. It's about how long can we keep going and playing and enjoying, wrapping all those even shady parts of ours in that sense of, sometimes I feel that it's there for a reason.
And with that, we're going to actually wrap up here. But Katia, you're going to actually end this for us with a little exercise. So hopefully everyone has learned something from this, but also they're going to be able to end this podcast feeling a lot lighter and more peaceful, hopefully within.
Yes. So I'll share with you one practice, which has, which one? It's not like there's too many. It's actually all comes down to a very basic principled way of grounding. Something that a mom, a woman can do when she is, let's say, nursing her baby. She feels a bit tired, or she is maybe waiting in line, or she's sitting in a car, not as a driver, at the back, maybe in an Uber. What can she do to a little bit reset? So I'll guide you through that. So if you're not driving, if you're not doing something important, join. Otherwise, just listen it, and then maybe you'll do it on your own when you can have this time. So let's do it together. So maybe you sit down if you can. If you are walking, then just don't close your eyes. Just look in front of you. And the first thing, of course, I'll ask you to take a deep breath, right? And by deep breath, what do I mean? I mean a breath that you take towards the belly. It doesn't have to feel like you're breathing in deeply, but it feels like you allow the air to go a little bit more towards the belly button. And then you sigh it out. So actually, I want women to sigh out. You know this Italian housewife thing? Please have that in your life. Having the voice, having that sense of release, using the vocal cords will do something with the vagal nerve, that kind of traveling through the brain and down. So sighing it out, 1 or 2 times, and then you breathe normally. From here, you having that mental inquiry into that, okay, what is my mental state right now? Mentally, what can I use? How can I describe my mental state? And it can be something like lots of thoughts. My brain is just running around. There's like this conversation that just happened. So you can describe mentally, how do I feel? And even right now, right, ladies, you can be like, hey, busy day, just Monday, lots of things to record, lots of things to process. Okay, let's say busy. Okay, maybe another breath. Now we'll go one layer deeper and okay, but how do I feel emotionally? Try not to go with just simple, I'm fine. Something that goes a little bit one layer deeper. Actually neutral. Very often we feel just neutral. Or maybe it's okay. It's uplifting. I'm excited about what's ahead of this day for me. Okay, so having that word here or a set of words that would define you. How do you feel on an emotional level? Maybe one more breath. Full exhale. And then finally, okay, how do I feel on my physical level? Sleepy, tired, restless. I can't wait for this thing to be over. I feel just heavy. I feel hungry. I need some water. This is where the insights may come in. But also we drop into that base foundation of how do we feel in that machinery of ours? I feel all of the things that may all of a sudden speak to you. Okay. And from here, it's almost like you take your awareness, which been focused on, okay, the body, maybe it's walking, maybe it's sitting, maybe it's having all that lightness or heaviness. And now you expand it and you're also all of a sudden aware of the sounds around you and remote sounds. You really can grasp that the world is so big and we are so small, but yet, even though we're so small, we are also having the whole like richness and depth in us. So we are big yet small yet big, depending on how we choose to look at ourselves. And also the problems that may be right now very big and important in the spectrum or context of the whole world, maybe like, hey, we're going to get the perspective a little bit shifted. That it's just one day, it's just a Monday. Maybe it's not the best one, but this is exactly how it's supposed to be right now. And so we finish with that expanding. And this is where if you were having your eyes closed, you open and you almost do want to, you know how you want to relax your eyes so that you see the corners of the room, really don't focus, but you allow the space to be perceived through the eyes. This is how we also allow the nervous system to, can be done literally in a minute, but having that check-in mentally, emotionally, okay, physically. And then with kindness, whatever we noticed, expanding. And from there, what would be the wisest choice you can make right now? Calling your mom, calling your friend, taking some nutritious food, just kind of being with your baby quietly. But Italian housewife, please use it daily. Let it become your sort of nickname. Makes such an easy way to let things a little bit lighter and also using the body and the voice to lighten up inside out.
Thank you so much, Katia. That was such a beautiful ending. And hopefully, if you have Italian friends, you better be forwarding them this episode now. What's the logical thing to do? To share and subscribe and to spread the word. But with that, we'll wrap it up here. Thank you so much that you gave us an insight on how does mindfulness look, how does hygiene for our mental health look, and how can we as mothers incorporate this into our daily lives when we are tired, overstimulated, overwhelmed with the whole I'm becoming a mother, matrescence, the whole process that you mentioned. And yeah, I hope this was helpful for someone who took these 20 minutes out of their day to listen to this podcast, to connect a little bit more with themselves. And if you want to know more about Katia, we'll put all her information in the show notes. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, ladies.